has come for our voices to be heard, for our borders to be secured, and our immigration laws enforced. Welcome to the Ruthie Report. Let's start the show in the correct fashion. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Again, welcome to the Ruthie Report, and as always, thank you for tuning in. The Ruthie Report is hosted by Patriot Network News, PNN. You can listen to the Ruthie Report at mincerproject.com, theruthiereport.com, PNNtalkradio.com, patriotsride.org, Spreaker.com, and at American Exceptionalism News Network, AENN. Now, this evening, in one short hour, our guest will be Ruthie Monsees of Brownsville, Texas. He is a Brownsville rancher. And Ruthie and I have a lot to discuss tonight. From what Ruthie says is the amount of drugs that are coming through being phenomenal, to illegal aliens climbing over his fence in his front yard, to his frustration that nothing is being done to secure the border, which of course we agree. We will share with Ruthie will share with us his thoughts on what he believes is happening, what he sees around him, and what they witness every day with this invasion. Now, Ruthie is 68 years old. He lives on a 21-acre ranch deep south subtropic climes of Brownsville, Texas. His property was purchased by his parents in 1940, and it borders the boundary with Mexico at the Rio Grande. He is a proud Texan, is a stand-up, down-to-earth kind of guy, and has been in law enforcement and is a business owner. Now, he complains, Ruthie, that the so-called border fence that runs north and south instead of east and west, and that it also cuts into his property and cuts it into two pieces. He experiences trespassers and trafficking on a regular basis, and his property is littered with trash. He said he can also hear gun battles raging across the river. He wants to know where the extra security that Governor Abbott has promised, and is really quite worried about the Honorable Border Patrol, those he calls angels in green, being placed in harm's way with their hands tied behind their backs by ridiculous regulations. Ruthie will join us in one short hour. You do not want to miss it. Now, I have so much news again this evening for you, so we are just going to fly. We're going to get to as much of it as we humanly possibly can. For those of you that are new listeners, what we do on the Ruthie Report is the first half an hour we have news. The second half an hour we have a segment that's called the Criminally and or Insane segment. And tonight I have some just revolting criminally and or insane for you, and then it is always followed up by the last hour with an awesome guest. So let's go ahead and get right to it, if we shall. First, judge rules against the Justice Department in Fast and Furious fight. This is dated January 19th and is posted at newsmax.com. A federal judge has rejected the Justice Department's claim of executive privilege used to withhold documents tied to the Fast and Furious gun-walking scandal from release to a congressional committee. House Republicans subpoenaed thousands of emails related to the operation and sued in federal court to obtain them. In her decision on Tuesday, Judge Amy Berman Jackson rejected the department's blanket assertion of executive privilege, saying that much of the withheld information had already been disclosed through other channels. The ruling is the latest development in a years-long legal fight over the botched effort by the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms to track guns across the southwest border. Now, adding to this is the most recent news dated January 20th at Fox News, titled Fast and Furious Rifle capable of taking down helicopter found in El Chapo's cache. A 50 caliber rifle found in El Capo Guzman's hideout in Mexico was funneled through the gun smuggling investigation known as Fast and Furious, sources said on Tuesday to Fox News. A 50 caliber is a massive rifle that can stop a car or, as it was intended, take down a helicopter. After a raid on January 8th, officials found a number of weapons inside the house where Guzman was staying, including the rifle, officials say. When agents from the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives checked the serial numbers of the 8 weapons found in his possession, they found that one of the 2 50 caliber weapons traced back to the ATF program. Federal officials told Fox News that they're not sure how many weapons seized at Guzman's house actually originated in the United States and where they were purchased, but they are, rest assured, folks, they are investigating. Now, out of the roughly 2,000 weapons sold through Fast and Furious, 34 of them, 34 were 50 caliber rifles that can take down a helicopter. The Fast and Furious operation involved federal agents allowing criminals to buy guns with the intention of tracking them. Instead, the agents lost track of 1,400 of the 2,000 guns involved in the sting operation. The operation became a major distraction for the Obama administration as Republicans in Congress conducted a series of inquiries into how the Justice Department allowed such an operation to happen. Former Attorney General Eric Holder was held in contempt after he refused to divulge documents for a congressional investigation into the matter. This is the third time a weapon from Fast and Furious program has been found at a high-profile Mexican crime scene. End of article. First, just let me say, Brian Terry, an American hero, rest in peace. Second, just common sense, why were 34 50 cal rifles even involved in this scam? Why would you put them in this operation? Why is Eric Holder not in jail? Why? And why isn't Obama taking heat right this very minute on this newest revelation? So many questions, no answers. How many more Americans and Mexicans will die from the failure of this program? Where are the rest of the weapons? I could just go on all night long just on that one article. Unbelievable. Can shoot down helicopters. And they sold 34 of them. Moving on. This is from LatinoFoxNews.com, dated the 20th. The title is Immigrants Rights Groups Sue. They are suing ICE, DHS, for information on a new deportation program. Now, before I get into this article, folks, let me share with you that the most recent raids, 121 were picked up. Nobody reports that they were deported. We have no idea what's going on with them. But back to this. The already embellished in controversy over a nationwide raids of undocumented families at the beginning of the month, ICE and the Department of Homeland Security, as well as 8 other federal agencies, are being sued in federal court to obtain document information about a new community cooperation program. The groups, which include the National Day Labor Organization Network and the Immigration Justice Clinic at Cardozo Law School, filed the suit after ICE failed to provide them any documents related to prior enforcement program. It's known as PEP, despite a request under the Freedom of Information Act. Altogether, 10 agencies with which the groups have filed for the requests, only 5 documents so far have been provided. PEP was established by Homeland Security J. Johnson as a replacement for the controversial Secure Communities program. The new program uses biometric data to prioritize the deportation of detained immigrants who have been convicted of an offense listed under the DHS Civil Immigration Enforcement Priorities, the refrigerator magnet memo, has intentionally participated in organized criminal gangs to further the illegal activity of the gang or poses a danger to national security. While PEP has been praised by Johnson, activists on both sides of the fence have qualms about it. Quote unquote by Jessica Vaughn, the director of the Policy Studies for Immigration Center for Immigration Studies, said, and I quote, "The implementation of ICE's new priority enforcement program is a major setback to the rule of law in our country. It further scales back immigration enforcement by ICE, and it explicitly facilitates sanctuary jurisdictions in obstructing ICE efforts to take custody of criminal aliens." End of article. First of all, let's get one thing straight. They're not undocumented families. They are illegal alien families. Let's get that straight right from the get-go. Second of all, if they want information, these groups want information, please let me do the honors. Here we go. In a nutshell, the Operation PEP is more lawlessness by DHS. It selectively picks illegal aliens for removal depending on convictions, when in fact, all illegal aliens have broke the law and should be removed. There you go. How simple was that? But no, instead, we are going to witness and see more of this judicial, lawless activism. And the insanity just continues. They're suing ICE, the ones, and DHS, the ones that are giving them cover to begin with. It's insane. It's insane. Moving on. Oh, this is posted at the Washington Post and by the Washington Post, and it is dated the 21st. The Supreme Court asked 4 questions about Obama's immigration initiative. The last one is key. The Supreme Court has agreed to hear a case assessing the legality of the immigration initiatives announced by Obama in November of 2014. As you recall, and this is written by an Andrew Lurivigi, he says, as you recall, Obama proposed to make it easier for as many as 5.5 million people now living in the United States illegally to stay and work. Saying that he wanted to deport felons, not families, the president announced that he would expand his program of Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, known as DACA, and create another larger one known as the Deferred Action for Parents of Americans, or DAPA. These directives were not executive orders. Rather, Secretary of Homeland Security J. Johnson issued guidance to law enforcement officials reshaping the removal priorities. He goes on to say, Andrew says, did immigration law give Obama the power to do this? Texas and 24 other states supported by many of President's opponents in Congress argue that he has overreached. During 2015, the Texas a federal district court judge, then a 3-panel judge of the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, ruled in favor of Texas and its allies. Thus, the program has not moved forward. And it doesn't say this in the article, but let me remind you that so far, Texas has won every step of the way. Now, he continues, in appealing to the Supreme Court, bypassing review of the Fifth Circuit, the president is rolling the dice, hoping that the justices affirm his authority before he leaves office. His opponents, of course, are hoping for snake eyes. In accepting the United States versus Texas, the justices asked the parties to answer 4 questions. Here are the 4 questions. First, do the states have standing? Meaning, do they have the right to sue in the first place? The lower courts both have answered yes to that question. Second, was the DHS guidance legally issued? The states argue that in practice, at least, the guidance is a regulation. It changes the program itself, not just the cases within the program, and so far the courts have agreed. Question 3, is the DHS guidance legal? The district court did not answer this, but Judge Andrew Hayden clearly thought that DHS has gone too far. Now, the 4th question is whether the guidance violates the Take Care Clause of the Constitution, Article 2, Section 3. He says, this one is a wild card. The justices added it themselves. The Take Care Clause simply says that the president shall take care that the laws be faithfully executed. So if the DHS guidance does not faithfully follow the Immigration and Naturalization Act, the administration has already lost its case. He concludes with this. There's a lot involved in the Texas case. Who gets sued and when? What counts as a regulation? And when does statutory misinterpretation bleed into constitutional malfeasance? All of the answers could have an important impact on presidential power, not just for Obama, but for his successors as well. Now, if you want to know more, folks, about the Take Care Clause, just punch it into your search engine. All kinds of stuff comes up. It's very simple to look up. But let me share this with you. From the Constitution, Article 2, Section 3, the portion with the take care reads, he shall take care that the laws be faithfully executed and shall commission all of the officers of the United States. That's the last sentence. For those of you who didn't pull it up or haven't yet, it is really kind of ironic, and I have to just share this with you, that the very next section, section number 4, discusses impeachment. Specifically, the President, Vice President, and all civil officers of the United States shall be removed from office on impeachment for the conviction of treason, bribery, or any other high crimes and misdemeanors. Well, if you're not faithfully following the law, many of us had hoped that the Supreme Court would have declined to hear this, and unfortunately that's not the case. So now it is time to gear up. I can already hear the pro-illegal alien activist buses warming up. So we must start our own plans to be present as well and have our voices heard. I hope there are patriot groups out there already working on this, and I fully will aid them as much as I possibly can. We have to be heard. We cannot let them show up and we are a no-show for this. We just can't. Moving on. This next item received considerable response to the post, actually quite a bit. It's from Breitbart. It's dated the 19th, and it's Latino activists in Georgia demand Spanish language ballots. I kid you not. Latino activists in Georgia say Spanish-speaking voters should be granted ballots and voting aids in their native tongue. According to the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, Georgia Association of Latino Elected Officials, known as GALO, and New York-based Latino Justice are pressing Gwinnett and Hall counties in Georgia to provide Spanish ballots and other voting material. The group, according to AGC, said a provision in the Voting Rights Act intended for Puerto Ricans should also apply to all Spanish-speaking voters in the state. Quote unquote by this Jerry Gonzalez of GALO's executive director, he said, "It's about enforcing the Voting Rights Act and ensuring voters, U.S. citizens, have access to voting to the full extent of the Voting Rights Act provides." While the activists push for the Spanish language voting, others say the focus should be on learning English in the first place. In response, the activists have demands. Hall County Attorney William Bullock, according to AGC, said that the county is not required to provide Spanish ballots. And Gwinnett County officials said that they are waiting on instruction from the state on the matter. If the counties do not provide the Spanish language ballots, the group demands, GALO said that they are considering filing a lawsuit. Oh, good Lord. Like I said, folks, this received considerable feedback. Everything from learn English to get out, from don't you need to know basic English to become a citizen, to screw you. And I'm putting that sentiment in the nicest terms I could find. That's pretty not exactly what they were saying, but close enough. The bottom line is this. This is my take. This is just another assault on our language and an action to aid this invasion. We speak English in the United States. And if you are here legally, learn it or leave. If you are here illegally, just leave. Period. It's pretty simple. No, don't do it. All right. This is from WFTV.com. It's dated January 14th. Lawmakers consider stiffer penalties for illegal immigrants convicted of crimes. It's out of Tallahassee, Florida. Florida legislators are getting into the immigration debate by trying to crack down on the number of crimes committed by illegal immigrants. They're illegal aliens, but we'll read it as it states. The bill would raise a criminal penalty by a degree. For example, someone living in the United States illegally and charged with a third-degree felony would automatically be bumped up to a second-degree felony. Sister Ann Kendrick of the Hope Community Center was in Tallahassee this week protesting the bill, which is Senate Bill 150. She said the bill is criminal discrimination. And I will quote her now. Quote unquote, when we're fearful, we're not at our best selves. And I think our political level of discourse in solving problems has reached an all-time low. End quote. Supporters argue harsher penalties would cut down on crime. Opponents say the state would be out of line by trying to stick their fingers into a federal issue. The bill was introduced this week at the start of the legislative session. It will go to the Criminal Justice Committee next. My thoughts, and I have tons on this. stiffer penalties for illegals committing crimes. Go figure. And yet, instead of addressing illegal immigration and the lawlessness, people rally against the common sense and the nonsense with like the cost to the American people, or like Sister Ann Kendrick, who again called it criminal discrimination and that we're not our best selves. Really? Really? Not our best selves? What about those who are the victims of illegal alien crime? What about their safety? What about their rights? What do their rights mean? Squat? This is unforgivable. How the victims are not taken into consideration, nor that their ordeals are given even a second thought, all in the name of illegal aliens. They're committing crimes here. I tell you what, how about instead of making new laws to address illegal immigration, we enforce the laws already on the books and start the deportation process. Hence, saving the American taxpayer the cost of incarceration, not to mention every other cost we are paying for, and putting the welfare of the victims, the Americans, ahead of the illegal aliens. Problem solved. I am so sick and tired of this pandering for the illegal alien foreigner. And the victims are, 3/4 of the time, the victims aren't even mentioned anymore. Their welfare, their futures, what happens is nothing to these people. We got a nun sitting here saying it's discrimination and we're not at our best. Well, no, we're not at our best. Neither are they. They have broken the law. Instead of making new laws, state by state by state, and having the federal government come in and sue us, like in Arizona, how about we just enforce the law as it stands now? I'm so tired of this pandering to the illegals. Jeez. All right, let's see here. We are going to get to these last two because they are important before we get to Criminally and or Insane tonight. First, this is at the NewYorkTimes.com, and it's dated the 15th. First of 8,000 stranded Cuban migrants cross into the United States by the Associated Press. This is out of Mexico City. The first of 8,000 Cuban migrants recently stranded in Central America have crossed the Mexican border into the United States. Some 180 migrants flew from Costa Rica to El Salvador and have been making their way to the United States, with the first reaching Laredo, Texas on Thursday night. The migrants spent several months in Costa Rica after the Nicaraguan authorities closed their borders on November 13th. You know, isn't it funny that apparently Nicaragua can close its borders, but we're not able to? Just saying. It goes on to say, Cubans currently only need to set foot on U.S. soil to gain entry. The Nicaraguan government criticized the United States policy for causing a big wave in migration. The initial 180 traveled together to Mexico as part of a pilot program. Then they went in smaller groups to the United States border. Central American governments will evaluate this pilot program in the coming days for the rest of the migrants, said Cathra Rodriguez, the Costa Rica's migration director. She estimates that they will need 28 more flights to move all of the stranded Cubans out of shelters. All coming here. All right, the last one for news this evening. This is from CIS, the Center for Immigration Studies, and it's cis.org, not .com. The title is DHS reports huge number of visitors overstayed in 2015. Only 3%, 3% of ICE enforcement resources are dedicated to addressing overstays. This is out of Washington, dated the 20th. A long-awaited report from the Department of Homeland Security confirming that overstays are a significant source of illegal immigration has been published just in time to provide clarity on the issue for a Senate Judiciary Committee. Jessica Vaughn said lawmakers and the public should be tremendously concerned that DHS identified more than 400,000 foreign visitors who did not depart in 2015 as required, and who apparently have joined the huge population of illegal aliens in the United States. More than 12,000 came from countries associated with terrorism. Clearly, our immigration controls are not sufficient to protect Americans, she said. The report identified just over 527,000 foreign visitors who apparently did not depart as required when their authorization stay expired in 2015. Approximately 484,000 were presumed to still be in the United States at the end of the year, and 416,500 had not departed as of January 4th, 2016. Of these overstaying visitors, you've got to be kidding me, 43% had entered on business or tourist visas. 29% had entered under the controversial visa waiver program, and 28% had entered by air or sea from Canada or Mexico. Despite a total estimated population of 4 to 5.5 million overstays in the United States, only about 8,000 are removed annually. You're kidding me. 4 to 5.5 million overstays in the United States, and only about 8,000 are removed per year, and DHS or ICE enforcement is only 3%. Only 3. And you and I are supposed to believe that DHS has everything under control, correct? In addition to refusing to secure our borders and ports, and aiding and abetting, pandering, to illegal aliens on a mega lawless scale, this administration and the Department of Homeland Security have only 3% of their resources utilizing overstays. Are you kidding me? Apparently, folks, our security is not paramount to either Obama nor DHS, or this insanity, this clear and present national security risks would be addressed. If they really took it seriously, it would be done. Failure to enforce the law, I would like to remind you, is grounds for impeachment and for others such as Jay Johnson charges and jail time as well. This is ridiculous. I just heard the other day, a lot of the voters, they were polling voters in Iowa and New Hampshire and all over the place. And a lot of them, a huge majority, said that one of their biggest issues was national security. And still, 3% of their resources are addressing overstays, and they're from, how did she put this here? I want to get it correct for you. More than 12,000 of these overstays came from countries associated with terrorism. Yeah, give you that warm, snuggly feeling, doesn't it? Just makes you feel safe, secure, wonderful. This is so insane. It is so insane. Take one giant step back and look at what is happening. All right, let's move on. Let's go to criminally and or insane, and I do have some just really horrible things for you this night. First, let's get to tonight's insane winner of the week. Actually, I have two of them, but I had to pick one for the winner, and the other one is a very close second. This is the winner of the week. It is by abc7news.com. It's dated the 20th. The title is, Immigration Advocates Say SFPD violated city's sanctuary city ordinance. I kid you not. Immigration advocates are accusing the San Francisco Police Department of violating the city's sanctuary city ordinance after officers released a man that ICE agents waited for outside the station. It's an ice cream headache. Pedro Lercino Fergora was held by the San Francisco police officers because he had an outstanding warrant. He was picked up by immigration agents at the police station, something that almost never happens. His attorneys say that Pedro came to the United States from El Salvador more than 10 years ago seeking asylum. They said he's not a violent felon, so there's no urgent reason why ICE should go after him. An ICE spokesperson released a statement saying that Pedro Lercino Fergora had been taken into custody December 2nd by officers assigned to one of the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement's fugitive operations teams. The fugitive operations officer targeted him for arrest based upon a conviction for a DUI and an outstanding order of removal issued by an immigration judge in 2005. But immigration advocates are not just going after ICE. They're angry and they're also going after the police department. Public defender Jeff Adishi joined them in accusing the police of violating the city's due process for all or sanctuary ordinance. He said, and I quote, "We want to make sure that the police officers who committed this offense and obviously violated the law themselves are held accountable," end quote. Are you freaking kidding me? The San Francisco Police Department said that they did not cooperate with ICE. They said they followed procedure and released him when ICE, Immigration and Customs, would not give details on a judge's warrant that was in the national system. Are you kidding me? He's still he remains in custody. He was denied bail while he awaits his hearing. On his case in 2019. It is beyond absurd. Are you kidding me? Let me get this straight. The pro-illegal minions want the San Francisco Police Department held accountable because ICE agents showed up at their jail and arrested a previously ordered to deport or removal order in a lawless sanctuary city. Arresting someone who is illegally in the country with a record. Are you kidding me? This is why, folks, this is why illegal immigration continues to flourish. Cries for law enforcement to be punished for doing their job regarding yet another lawless, illegal alien who should not have been in the country to begin with. Asinine judicial nonsense and games, while selectively ignoring the lawless in the first place. He is here illegally. It's almost to the point where you can't wrap your mind around the stupidity anymore. Enough. Deport. 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 How simple can this get? And here's your close second for tonight. It's at Breitbart. It's dated the 20th. And the title is Migrant Claims Sex with a Dead Girl Not an Assault. Says conviction should be dropped. I kid you not. An illegal migrant, which we call an illegal alien, who was convicted in Wisconsin of sexually molesting the body of a dead girl, is seeking to have his conviction on sexual violence charges overturned by claiming that the dead body can't be sexually assaulted because it can't be forced or coerced into a sex act. Oh my God. Eusebio Variable Gaspar, I'm going to refer to him as Gaspar, was convicted in Wisconsin of a violent sexual act as well as entering the country illegally and was given 57-month sentence. His lawyers have now filed a motion to have the conviction reversed because they say a corpse can't be raped or sexually abused. The trial court disagreed with the claim and held Gaspar that he committed an act of sexual violence by having sex with a dead body. It is this decision that Gaspar wants to have appealed. So on January 15th, he filed the claim. Oddly, the Center for Immigration Studies notes that this isn't the only case where migrants, or illegal aliens, might benefit from someone else being dead. Obama's DHS, wouldn't you know, Jay just keeps popping up like a bad dream. Obama's DHS is seeking a change in rules that would aid illegals entering the country to have their status legalized if their return would have harmed someone they left behind, even if that someone is already dead. I kid you not. End of article. Who in the hell sexually assaults a dead person? Come on. Oh my God. And now this sexual illegal alien puke will fight in court. You know, I can hardly believe what I share with you anymore. It is just so absurd. So absurd. These next two, specifically the second one, I'm going to give you a warning. The first one is revolting, but the second one that I'm going to share is so revolting. It is so disturbing. Please, if you have children that are just sitting in the room who can overhear, you may want them to leave. And if you're weak at heart, you might not want to listen either. The first one is from LatinoFoxNews.com, dated the 15th. An undocumented immigrant has pled guilty in Alabama to sexually assaulting a young girl in 2014. Pedro Ramirez Rocha, 43, who was indicted in September of 2015 on 4 counts of sexual abuse of a child under 12, agreed to a plea agreement after it was finalized with the blessing of the victim's family. Why? Because the family of the now 11-year-old girl didn't want her to go through the stress of testifying at a trial. Entering into the agreement, Ramirez Rocha had maintained his innocence all along. The plea deal will put him in prison for 5 years with no chance for parole. Based on his citizenship status, it is likely Rocha will be deported back to Mexico as soon as he finishes that 5-year sentence. What do you mean likely? What do you mean likely? Rocha was arrested while using the alias of Shamil Sada, and that he was not in the country legally. A hold order on Rocha had been placed by Immigration and Customs Service for being in the country illegally. Investigators say that beginning in August of 2014, Rocha was accused of having the girl watch pornographic films, pornography, with him while he touched her inappropriately. The child abuse was brought to light when the girl told an adult who reported it to authorities. All right, this next item really got me going, and I'm going to share every single thought. Again, if you have children in the room, ask them to leave. This is by CBS5AZ.com. Mesa, Arizona, by KPHO and KTVK. The title is Mesa PD. Bound child found in bag of feces. Shocks the soul. A man and a woman were arrested on Monday in connection to the worst case of child abuse Mesa police officers have seen in a while. Officers who responded to the scene were troubled by the conditions of having to witness this, and without delay, we have resources for them, said John Mesa, chief of police. The 3-year-old child. 3. The 3-year-old child, who had allegedly been offered up for sex, was rescued Monday after authorities found her in a trash bag surrounded by feces in a closet. Her mouth, arms, hands, and legs were duct taped, Mesa said. She was also malnourished. The suspect wanted to have sex with other people, and said he put the child in the closet because she was too loud. The victim was found with many bruises, scars, and blisters on her body, the police said. Neglect so harsh that she could not stand on her own. Police say that the child's mother, Maria Yomia Solis, who is homeless, had been dropping the girl off with Francisco Rios Covarrubias for days at a time over the past month. Mesa said that Rios had agreed to babysit the child while the mother went to work. Mesa said that Solis would stop by and see the child just one day a week. Police said that they were tipped off Monday after Rios had met online for sex. Met this man online for sex, showed up at the apartment about 7 a.m. and noticed a bad odor. He also observed the child bound and gagged with duct tape kept inside the closet. The suspect asked the responding party if he wanted to have sex with the child, Mesa said. The other man became upset and left the apartment. He returned shortly and had consensual sex. Oh my God. But told police that he did not see the girl. He left and immediately called police. When police arrived, they found the girl, removed the duct tape, and she was taken to the hospital. Rios is accused of having sexually abused her. The officers say he confessed to duct taping the child. Officers said that the homeless mother had shaved her daughter's head so that she could claim she had cancer to collect money. Solis also told police she admitted to knowing about her daughter's injuries but did not seek treatment. Rios faced a Maricopa County Superior Court judge Tuesday to answer to the charges of kidnapping, sexual conduct with a minor, felony child abuse, and sex trafficking. The judge could not find sufficient evidence on the sex trafficking. Rios was denied bail because he is in the country illegally. He has also been placed on an immigration enforcement hold. Solis was booked on child abuse charges. She also made an initial court appearance on Tuesday. The judge set her bond at $15,000. Mesa said, the chief of police, and I quote, "In this case, it was a combination of just evilness, but also the fact that the suspect had offered up this child to a person who called to have sex." Now, I did try to find out more information on the child, and all I could find for current status is this: that the girl is currently recovering at the hospital. She is unable to stand and has not said a word to investigators. Mesa Police Chief John Mesa said, "It's not clear if the girl cannot speak out of terror or if she's simply unable to do so." Oh my God. Oh my God. I am going to be ill. This poor child. Oh my God. In a garbage bag. Duct taped. Bound. Tape over her mouth. Oh. Regardless of this puke's immigration status, which I will get to in a moment, he needs to be put down. I can't think of any other way of stating it. He needs to be put down. And the mother is no better. She knew what was happening in the state of this child and did nothing but use her for a cancer scam for money. The only reason this child is still not suffering is because some guy who couldn't contain himself returned for sex, and then, only then after he got his rocks off, did he alert police. And unbelievably, we almost have to be thankful for him for doing it. And now, addressing this sexual, criminal, deviant, and his immigration status. Again, regardless, justice must be served. But his immigration status is important. This is another example of the unsecured, sick individuals given a pass. Why are we allowing this to happen and to continue? There are those right now listening that are going to say, well, Americans commit crimes like this too. And that's true. It is. So why in hell are we not spending our time and our resources stopping this with Americans versus illegal alien foreigners? And please note, the mother's status was not provided. We are allowing, why are we allowing our society to be impacted by this criminal element and illegal immigration at all? Again, justice must be served. And we see this violence taking place in what many refer to as within their own, meaning illegal on illegal. It could have, folks. It could have been some kidnapped American child as well, instead of this poor 3-year-old victim. Then what? Why must we, Americans, and those who played by the rules, those that were screened, be subject to pay for this, both the criminal acts themselves and financially? 3 meals a day, a warm bed, health care for how long? All for cheap labor, votes, head count, and those out there with this Kool-Aid world peace dancing around in their heads that concentrate on the plight of foreigners versus their own fellow citizens. Illegal alien foreigners versus citizens. Enough! Enough! What is it going to take? Good God! This should revolt every person in this country. Godspeed to this poor little child. I can't even think of her in a closet, in a garbage bag, in her own feces, being offered up for sex by some guy that found another guy online and went over at 7 in the morning. It's just too much. It just makes me sick. Oh my God. Moving on. There's an informative article or news that you can pull up at judicialwatch.org. The title is New Report on Border Terror Threat. It's dated January 15th. That is something you should really look up. There is a previous deported gang member from El Salvador. A previously deported gang member from El Salvador that was caught by Border Patrol agents after he tried to re-enter into California. You know, a wonderful kind of guy. The man was identified by authorities as 27-year-old Luis Armando Barrera Espinoza, who is also suspected of trafficking methamphetamines. The arrest, of course, occurred in California's El Centro sector, immediately east of the border sector where Border Patrol agent Robert Rosa was brutally murdered. This was at Breitbart, and it is written by Brandon Darby. It's dated the 20th, and he says, this reporter visited the memorial for Agent Rosa. That 2014 visit revealed that the U.S. government had failed to properly secure the area with fencing that could have actually prevented such criminals from crossing into the United States. Again, even after the brutal murder of Agent Rosa, the small fence that existed when Agent Rosa was murdered remained the only physical barrier in this location. You know, it's another violent gang member entering at will. A clear and pleasant danger. You know, I'm so tired of hearing all of these people talking about and saying that the border must be secured. It is nothing but lip service. We've been hearing it since 1986. You know, if so many people are saying that and they actually believe what they're saying, they actually mean it, then why in the hell isn't it secured? Why do we have violent gang members from El Salvador entering at will? All right, we are going to be joined by our guest. I just want to put out here really quick. This is at the Valley Morning Star, and it is something that you should look up. It says that jails refuse to hold immigrants for feds. It is amazing, folks. More than 18,000 times over the past 2 years, local jails across the country have failed to hand over deported, deportable immigrants to federal authorities. It is amazing. Of course, California leads the way. We are out of time. I got to as much of it as I could for you. What I would like to do now is welcome to the Ruthie Report. Our guest this evening, Rusty Monsees of Brownsville, Texas. Are you with us, Rusty?
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Well, hello. Thank you very much for being my guest this evening.
Actually, I appreciate the fact that you're willing to have me on. I'm considered to be a lightning rod. Whenever I open my mouth, lightning seems to strike. So let's hope it doesn't happen tonight.
Well, I don't know how much of the program you heard, but there was a 3-year-old abuse case in Mesa, and it has just unnerved me, and I just went off the rails. And the comment that, golly gee, you sound angry. Well, hell's bells, I got news for these people. That's because I am. I am so tired of this lawless nonsense, Rusty, I tell ya. So let me begin, just for those that are tuning in now at the top of the hour. Our guest is Rusty Monsees of Brownsville, Texas. We have tons to talk about. Rusty, before we begin, can you tell the folks a little bit about yourself, where you're situated and located, and then we can jump in?
All right. I live in Brownsville, Texas. It's supposed to be, where I'm at, is the most southern part of the United States, in the continental United States, outside of being in Key West or something like that. The fence, this debacle, cuts through the property. Mom and Dad bought the property in 1940, 21 acres. Back then, when the river was farther away, they had about 28. And since then, over the years, the river's moved forward, and so now we're left with 21 acres. It's an old historic crossing because it's not every river bank or river bed is hard. And where we're at, I say we, me and my dog, it's a hard bottom. There's so many areas along the Rio Grande which are soft or quicksand, if you will. This property, as far as the crossing point, goes back to when my father was in the Mexican Revolution with Pancho Villa, and he was his main bodyguard. Although my dad was born in Sedalia, Missouri, and raised in Smithton, and came down with his dad in 1906. And my dad was born in 1893. So anyway, this area has always been historically a point for crossing because the width of the river, the depth of the water, and the close proximity to a road that you can get into town on, particularly now that the city has come out into the county. There's a bus service, and there's more taxi cabs, and there's a lot more traffic, which makes it easier for people who are crossing over to get your ride, if the ride is not already there waiting for them. Mm-hmm. Or if the Border Patrol is lucky enough and they catch them. Now, this is where part of it goes. The Border Patrol down here, for the Border Patrol station at Fort Brown, which is close to the farm, that's what everybody's called it for years, or the ranch if you're from Spanish, has an area of 250 square miles to patrol. All right? Now, at any given time, because of other duties being most of the station being drawn to McAllen, which is where all the kids come through, it will leave a maximum of 8 men in units and in 2 watercraft, and they're only allowed to work 6 hours a day on the water. 8 men to patrol 250 square miles. Now, as comparison, District of Columbia is 10 by 10 square, 10 miles by 10 miles, which gives you 100 square miles. All right. Just for some basic patrol, there are 200 men per square mile in D.C. That is not inclusive of all the rest of the private security, block communities, and everything else. Down here, Brownsville has a population of 137,000 people, including Border Patrol, city and county, and constables. If you throw them all together in a pot, and they are responsible for this, quote, 250 square mile area, it figures out to be something in the neighborhood of, as a man told me, gee whiz, 13 square miles per man. Isn't that amazing?
Isn't that amazing?
Yes, isn't that amazing that the government is willing to spend so much money to bring us 13? What the hell is going on? Pardon my French, I'm sorry. I'm on a rant. I'll shut up for a minute.
That's okay.
But here's the thing. The Border Patrol is down on the river 24/7. They're on my property 24/7. Here, roughly 6 weeks ago, the Border Patrol downstream of the property caught or saw a man loading up a pickup, 3/4-ton Chevy pickup, 4-wheel drive. He did not finish loading up the truck. He took off. It happened right at shift change. So the Border Patrol had 5 units chasing him, and he's driving over field roads. Now, if you've never been around a farm, a field road is something that you drive a tractor on. It's not intended to be real smooth, and it's got chuck holes in it, and you name it, all right? This guy is scooting at over 65 miles an hour with a truck that's loaded down with dope, and the Border Patrol chasing him merrily along at the same speed with lights and siren. 6 units are on the highway trying to get up and block him before he hits the road that I live on. He was about 3 minutes ahead of them. He jumped the truck onto the road, bounced twice, kept it from rolling. I have to say he was a pretty good driver, and took off. He cut back to the river. He was caught by the Border Patrol. They got the vehicle and 987 pounds of product. Okay? This is pretty much of an everyday occurrence. The Border Patrol, and people jump up and down and say, oh, la migra esta cosa, ya. In translation, say, oh, the Border Patrol, what are they doing? You know, they're overmanned, they're overpaid. What's the deal? Well, the deal is, the fact is, their hands are tied, and they cannot catch every load. And as it figures out to national stats, and this was conducted back during the time of Reagan and everybody else, the Border Patrol catches about 18% of what comes across on a good day. Right.
Well, and if anybody would doubt that number, well, when you have that many square miles to cover and you have that few enforcement officers, why would anybody doubt that number? I mean, it just seems like common sense to me, Rusty, that we are, as you said, undermanned, and they're outgunned. You know, when you were talking about this, I was thinking, we hear so much about the complaints about, what it would cost to secure the border. Well, maybe if we took some of the law enforcement officers out of Washington, D.C., and kept paying them to be on the border, and we actually secured it, a lot of these costs would go away.
This is the big thing. Now, consider this. And this is by virtue of, I'm going to mention his name because he's been dead for over 6 years. His name was Henry Bozio. He was the chief special agent for the U.S. Customs Department down here in Brownsville. And this is the right before they renamed it and gave it this god-awful acronym. Hank said, and this is by virtue of records at that time, per bank, okay, per city, and they're saying bank as to location rather than companies, that on an average of $1.3 million a day comes across the river, of which it was figured that half of that is dirty money. Now, from Brownsville to Mission, and I'm going to guesstimate at the figures, there is somewhere in the neighborhood of 125 locations of banks. All right. Now you figure somebody's real fast here listing, I hope. You take 125 and you multiply it times 750,000, and that gives you how much dirty money is coming across in the valley area.
It's astounding.
And this is what's cute. This is what I love about it, is the fact that in that dirty money which is coming across, when Hank was alive and he was working, his guesstimation was that 50% of that was on its way back up north to some of the most inaustere locations, D.C. being one of them, which found itself way into packs. Boy, I'm going to catch lightning bolts for that one.
No, that's fine. That is fine. Yeah, because I'll come out and make it easy. The reason, or what I think, and I'm speaking for myself, not for Rusty, the reason the border hasn't been secured, the reason that illegal immigration is not seriously addressed, the reason that all of this continues to transpire and all we get is lip service is because pockets in Washington, D.C. are being filled. You cannot tell me that we elect these people, that they are supposed to look out and represent us and our best interests, and they are this naive, blind, stupid, whatever you want to call it, to what's going on, and they're not getting some benefit out of it. I truly believe that there are those in Washington, D.C. whose pockets are being filled by the drug cartels. Absolutely 100%. Okay,
I'll give you a real fast example of what took place. We used to have a congressman here in the Valley. He was a congressman for 30 years. He was elected 15 times. Every time at his reelection, he would go to the Ways and Means Committee for appropriations and would appropriate a minimum of $1 million per reelection to do a study on the feasibility of having a border fence. All right? He did this 15 times. I saw his retirement home. Oh, it's a hovel. He barely has a driveway. It's 6 inches thick. It's 175 foot wide, and it has the most beautiful lights on it at night. The driveway is 1.25 miles long.
Yeah,
the little garage there is big enough for a Gulfstream, a Lear, a Cessna Twin, and 5 parts.
It would be an insult to our intelligence not to think that somebody is being paid off. Really, I mean, I know that there are those that want to sit back and intelligently say, oh, they wouldn't do that. Money's not changing hands. but realistically, I don't know how our representatives that unfortunately we put into office, and in many cases it was the wrong candidate, but how they can get this so wrong. But let's move on from that, because I did want to talk to you about in the show announcement for tonight, I said that you see the amount of drugs that are coming through as being phenomenal. Now, do you mean when you say the drugs that you see coming through, do you mean through just like through your own property, through that area, and what do you mean by phenomenal?
Okay. Through my property, 21 acres, there is a day, even now, considering the fact that the Border Patrol, and these guys, I'll tell you what, and I affectionately call them my angels in green, okay? And somebody's going to titter over that, but that's fine. The angels I refer to is the shield that they wear on their uniform. It looks like, if it's the silhouette is like an angel. And they're always in green. So to me, they're my angels in green. Every one of them. I don't get along with 100% of them. That's a fact. But I give them every ounce of respect that I can possibly give them, because they get out there and do stuff that people who would be paid twice as much wouldn't do. These guys love their country. They've already put time into the service. They're out. And I'm going to have to, I think the last figure was 70% of them have a college degree, and they could go someplace else and make more money, but they love their country and they're doing this job. Now, at this point, the amount of drugs that we see out there, the signs, the prints where it's been, where the packages have been left, where they've been covered by grass, where they've been covered by dirt, and somebody's come along and dug them up. In some cases, we have aircraft who fly at 100 feet. One of them is a white, big Huey. No, he hasn't been shot down yet, but the neighbors are waiting for him, and they're going to knock him down one of these times, hopefully. And he will kick out bundles of dope in special over-strength bags of crack, of anything you can get a high off of, from marijuana to heroin. Make an airdrop.
Wait a minute. You are telling me that this is coming from Mexico, right? Into the United States, flying in and dropping bundles of drugs. And you guys see this. You see it taking place.
Yeah. We've tried a couple of, now, one neighbor, he did knock down one helo. And that was because of aggravation on his part, because it was some Mexican military who was harassing his house. And he came in from the field. And his wife finally got in touch with him. She said they're scaring the kids. They were flying at 50 foot above, and it was a Mexican military helicopter. He showed up, tried to shoo him away, and they flipped him off, which really was the wrong thing to do. Mm-hmm. He went into his house, came out with an old bolt-action 03A3 and put one through the big mouth of a turbine, okay? And the bird went down about a mile inside Mexico. They put it off, and they said, quote, it developed engine trouble. Well, I guess it would.
No.
They stopped flying over his house. But by the same token, the other helos, which have been bringing incursions and dropping the drugs, they have been shot at. And these birds are not the atypical commercial helicopters. These are military helicopters which have been sold into Mexico and then stolen and remarked and are being used for the drops here in the States. And
how often do you see these planes, these Hueys, helicopters?
they're seen on a daily basis, not necessarily in the same area. And these birds, they will take a man told me he put a round into the plexiglass where the pilot was sitting. Okay, with a .375 Magnum, and he said it didn't knock it down, and the guy just kind of waved at him and kept on going. So this is military grade. This is military grade that we have sold into Mexico. And
I have to ask, Rusty, because I can just tell the listeners are saying, ask them. If you guys are seeing this, just say even once a week, just, something even, vague as that. Do you guys have any video of this? And not even so much you guys, because I do, and we will get to it, I do want to discuss the fear of, those living in this area. But even Border Patrol has to know then that this is happening. How come there are not videos out there showing this? This is incursions, is what they call it, and they are crossing into a sovereign nation. Why in the hell aren't we taking them down ourselves, the government? Too many questions, I know. I'm sorry, but is there proof of this? Is there something that we could put out on the internet to every man, woman, and child that's fighting this, and make them address this, coming in and actually dropping the bundles? I mean, seriously. And then Border Patrol has to know.
They have their hands are tied. I know of agents who have reported. I know of several agents who have on their personal. They carry a personal iPad or whatever, and have made videos, and they have been cut loose, and they have been harassed, okay, and threatened with prosecution and prison time if they try to do anything about it. And that's not here and this is not from the sector chief or anybody else. This is way up the line.
Yeah, it always is, isn't it? It's amazing.
And because the amount, the guys are down here in the field. Now, true. There's the adage is you've got 95% of any given company or whatever, they're all righteous, so you have to worry about the 5%. That's true on any organization. I can say for a fact that all the guys that I know that work around the farm that are out there on the river, there's less than 5% I have to worry about. It's probably 1%. Okay? Who may be theoretically dirty. All right. But these guys are down here, and they are being taken advantage of. Here in the last 2.5 years ago, there was a big flap that made the newspapers, and everybody got incensed about the Border Patrol because of a Border Patrolman who shot and killed a 12 or a 13-year-old teenager in Mexico because it's, quote, hit him with a rock.
Yep,
he did not hit him with a rock. The rock weighed over 8 pounds, and it was thrown at the launch, the Border Patrol boat, with a large, overgrown slingshot.
Now, is this the same one, Rusty, where the family is now suing the United States government? Is that the same one?
Oh, they've already won. The government gave them $12 million. This rock per se that this kid is supposedly thrown at the patrol boat weighed 8 pounds. There's no kid that can pick up an 8-pound chunk of concrete and throw it and hit it at anybody when they're 125 foot away. Not unless he's Arnold Schwarzenegger, possibly, or maybe unless he's Superman. I'm being facetious.
Yes.
This was a designed tool. It was a slingshot. The pouch, because I have seen a duplicate of it in Matamoros, because I still go across, and people say I'm crazy, but then what can I tell you? I'm 68. I should worry about it. I have seen the shop that makes these slingshots because one of the things they use them for is to throw the drugs across the river. And they have got a working range of 300 feet. And they will throw a package of coke, okay, that weighs 25 pounds. And they were using this slingshot with concrete, and they caught the patrol boat. And this guy he was real lucky. It bounced off the canopy before it hit him in the head. And I'm sorry. It was a 13-year-old kid. The kid knew what he was doing.
Exactly.
And this is the whole thing, and the media picked up on it. Oh, that we're picking on. No, we're not. When you go out and there are veterans out there, I'm assuming, who have been in situations, and even today they talk about the human bomb walking up, okay, suicide bomber. The ones who were in Vietnam, kids who were 8 and 9 years old would walk up to a group of soldiers with C4 strapped to them and pull the pin and set themselves off and clear an area 50 or 60 feet. The kids did it because they were told to. This is what happens now. Are all the kids in Mexico like that? No, not at all. I know. But this is a war-like situation. This is what people do not understand. In deference, I'll keep it short. These families are living under the gun and under the pressure of the cartel because they are holding 1 or 2 family members as a hostage. And they're told, and they believe, because it will happen, if you don't do this, we will cut off your daddy's arms and give them to you for your birthday. We will take your older sister, and she will be our slut for 100 men. Okay? Now, is it right and fair? No. But these families, I'm aware of what takes place. But the fact is, our government can and would do this. How do I phrase it without sounding like a bigot? I'll say it anyway. A man that I've known for many, many years. He calls in. I don't see him as being black. I just see him as somebody I've known for many years. He said, you know something? He said, if with all this tragedy and everything going on, if they were black, he said we would have invaded Mexico already and taken care of them. He said it's a damn shame. He said, but so many people say, well, they're only Mexicans, so big deal. And the drugs still keep on flowing. And I'll throw this figure in. An underestimation of the innocents killed in Mexico in the last 8 years exceeds, from the figures that I've developed, 80,000 innocent people have been killed because of drugs in Mexico. Now, the closest figure that Mexico can come up with, because they're still finding bodies, exceeds 350,000 innocents. You know what? No one cares. Our government doesn't care. Washington doesn't care. And the drugs keep flowing. And I'll shut up for a minute.
2 points to that. First of all, I have had other guests on. I have another Rusty that's on the program. It's really weird that you're both Rusty and you're both from Texas and you're both telling a lot of the same stories.
He isn't bald, is he?
I'm
bald and blue-eyed now. If there's another one bald and blue-eyed, I don't know. I hope we're not within a couple of years of each other.
No, I'm not sure how old Rusty is. Anyway, he has, him and I have addressed the violence and the threats of those that are more or less forced into carrying the drugs over, or forced into doing this, or forced into doing that. And I understand that. I take a different approach or look at it, and I hold our government responsible. If we secured the border, and if we did everything we could to make it from the Mexican side to the United States side, and we shut it down, many of those families would not suffer in Mexico because there wouldn't be a point for the cartels to do so. Now, the other point was, go ahead.
I say this is true. This is the whole thing, because look, we have got the capacity. Look at the amount of troops we've got we've got in standing at attention in other countries. Our country is under an invasion situation. We have so many people coming in. Now, with the people that we've got coming in, I'll throw this in as well. We do have terrorists coming across the river. The Border Patrol sees some here a period of months back. They were armed. They took them in. Not a shot was fired, by the grace of God. But they were lucky. They caught that group. But there are so many that are coming through that they can't catch, because the agents which should be on the river doing the patrol that they were designed to do are playing nursemaid, changing diapers, and like one of them said, he said, I have to change diapers at home, somebody else's kid, big deal. He said, but that's not what I was paid to do. This is not what I was trained to do. I should be out on the river.
Yep.
And
now, my second point
does not kick in. I'm sorry. Go ahead, ma'am.
That's okay. I just want to throw this second point in because it is important in what you're talking about. You know, if you listen to the mainstream media and what they are force feeding us, what they want us to hear about, what they want us to know about, hell's bells, you can hear about all of the violence in some third world country overseas, and this is happening and that is happening. But you know what? The same crap, the same violence, the same criminal element is happening in Mexico, just over our southern border, which is unsecured, and not one damn media outsource major. You know, we have, Breitbart and several others that just continue to report, and thank God for them. But the large mainstream media will pound an issue home and pound it home and pound it home, but they don't talk about the Mexicans that are being forced to do this. And, and you can take this either way. I do understand, the other Rusty and I have had in-depth conversations about this, and I understand, you do this, it's silver or lead is what he calls it. And I do understand that, but at some point, these people need to step up to the plate and take their country back. And that, Rusty, is what you and I are trying to do now before we become like them.
We are at the point, because, like I said, I go across the river and I have contacts with people, and they contact me different ways and different times. But this is the thing: they are in the throes of starting their own revolution. Okay, now, am I excited about hearing about it? No, because I know there's going to be a lot more blood loss. But this is the thing: they are fighting for their existence the same, probably in a worse situation than we are. But our people, our politicians, our media is waltzing. And as we are the property owners down here on the river, with all of this going in, with the amount of drugs coming through on a daily basis, with the deprivation that's taking place, property owners. There was one man up the river. He brought in some brand new calves, put them in a pasture close enough to his house that he could keep an eye on them. Within a week of the time that he had brought the calves in, he found them butchered out with a note. You called in about a load going through. Right.
See, and that was where I wanted to go next. In an article, for those that want to look it up, it's by KRGV. It's also posted at Overpasses for America if you're a member of them. The title is, let me find the title here. Brownsville, Texas residents are fed up with do-nothing Border Patrol. And I don't think they meant, the Border Patrol themselves. They're fed up with the border not being secured. But in this article, and I do want to talk about your fence real quick. Don't let me forget that. But in here you say and this is quoting you, I've got people that call me constantly because they're afraid it's going to be found out that they are reporting on activities. Tell me, Rusty, and the listeners, because like I told you in a previous phone call, there are so many people across the nation that really do not have a clue what you and your neighbors are forced to put up with day in and day out by the lack of anybody to take this serious. Are you guys that threatened that you can't report?
There are. Now here's. I've got the advantage. I'm like I say, it's just me and my dog. All right. And I'm a handful to deal with. And worst situation, medical reasons and everything. I'm still a handful. They don't want to really tangle with me unless they absolutely have to, because I'm not afraid of them. You want to go into this? We'll do this another time, and I'll have a pot of coffee and we can talk about it. Why? But this is the thing. The people here are afraid because some cases some of their extended family is still in Mexico, and they know that if any word gets out, the family right across the border is going to suffer. I know this has already happened because I was privy to it. Short deal. I lost 2 years ago because my dad was in the revolution, okay? He was married in Mexico. They had 3 children. Because of all the political yin-yang, they had to get a divorce, all right? The children's children, which are still my bloodline. In Monterey, Juan and Amalia have 4 kids. He had businesses. He refused to pay the mordida, the bite, okay, the percentage to the cartel. So from Monterey, they went to see his in-laws in Saltillo, south of Saltillo. The cartel walked in during dinner. They kicked open the front door of the father-in-law's suegros, the in-laws, okay? Kicks open the front door, goes into the dinner table, shoots Juan, Amalia, his wife, and the 4 kids in the head and says, "Saludos, health to you all, goodbye." This goes on, and this is one reason why so many of the people are scared to death, because they know if word gets out, either here on this side or on the other side, something's going to happen. So they contact me, sometimes by the phone. Most of the time, I'm a constant coffee drinker. It's a big joke in town. I don't eat much, but I sure drink a lot of coffee. And people will bump into me, and then I go ahead and I pass the information along. And I have agreement with a couple of agencies whereby they rewrite the information so that there is not maybe a 1 in a 10,000 chance that somebody's going to pick up who the originator was outside of me. Protect them.
Do you fear personal repercussions for what you are doing?
Oh, sure. I've been shot at more than once. I've had the farm is a graveyard of dogs. My last two, my best of the dogs that I had, they barked and everything. They laid in with the Border Patrol. The Border Patrol loved them. They had best ears and nose in the world. The jefe of the La Maña, otro lado, the kids, okay, they were smuggling the people in the dope. He wanted the dogs silenced because they were making too much noise. The coyote, the kid who did it, he cried and he told me, he said, I had to do it. He said, because of my family. The heads of the dogs are on trophy boards in the jefe's office in Matamoros.
So now, and I don't want to sound cold. I don't. That's not my intent. But what the hell, people? If you if you hear what is going on, that to be that naive to believe that is not, it's already here. I mean, it's on Rusty's farm, but to believe that this overspill violence or their violence or whatever kind of name you want to give to this is not going to flourish and continue to increase and grow in the United States if we don't stop it, enforce our laws, secure the border, we are going to be facing more and more of this. It drives me insane, Rusty, that I can have you on the program. You can tell me things like this, that they killed your dogs because they made too much noise to smuggle their humans and drugs across, and not a damn thing is happening, and well, maybe you don't agree with me. Do you think it's going to increase if we don't do something?
Absolutely. I have seen, because there is so much, because see, this is the whole thing. It's not a social and economic situation. It's pure greed. This is money. And the biggest percent, and this goes back to D.C. It used to be Beverly Hills had the best. You could buy a Rolls Royce pretty easy, or anything else you wanted, Ferrari, Lamborghini. Now the best dealers in the United States are in D.C. Okay.
Yeah, I never thought of it quite that way, but
it was 60 Minutes in 2020 that came up with that themselves, and they had it on the news. Wow, look how easy it is. Well, I can go in there, and within 3 or 4 days, I can have a brand new Lamborghini. You can't even do that in California.
It's
the
frightening.
The amount of money that's generated by this and is going back up north. The amount, people do not realize the fact that these idiots who we have elected, one of the reasons why they don't care is they live in a gated community.
Yeah.
They don't care what happens to somebody who lives in a suburb of Alexandria or outside of Selma, Alabama. They could care less. They're protected.
See, and
We've
that's
been
why
stupid enough to.
I wanted you to give your best description of what it is like on your farm, because even the patriots that are fighting, those that are engaged, those that are actually paying attention and not watching Dancing with Stars or whatever, those that are really engaged in fighting, standing with you and I and millions of others, there are those, as much as they stand strong and are patriots, that just really do not understand what life is like. I have, and I did ask you if you've known, the Texas Border Volunteers. They talk about in the Falfurus area where they can't even go outside anymore without being armed. Mm-hmm. I mean, for somebody that's
Falfurus is about 100 and some odd miles, really, from the border.
Yep.
There are areas outside of Houston which are so bad because the amount of drugs which are being brought up is bad. There are neighborhoods out in Bandera, Texas, which is the west of San Antonio. The residents there have chain link fence, 6 foot tall, and concertina wire on the top to protect their families. This is, and what is taking place here, but the fact is that the amount of people who are aware of it to try to do something, there are so many, the greater number. Here we go. Lightning's going to strike again. They sit on their butts. They get calluses on the couch. They call for a delivery home pizza, and they play with their Facebook. And that's all they do outside of running their mouth and saying, well, if I was there, they would. If they won't get up and wipe their own bottom without help. And there are and the few of the ones who have come down here and have tried, their numbers, some of those groups have been shot down by their own people because they say, well, hey, big deal. I know of people who would be coming down here to help, but because of economic situations, we know this is not a bull market right now. It's a bear market. And they are fighting and struggling to maintain their own family safety and money and food on the table. I can't throw rocks at these people for not coming down because of that. But what bothers me is the fact there's so many other people that could be doing something, if nothing else, jumping up and down, seriously, and making the politicians, making the leaders accountable.
Yeah, I've been trying to do my tour down on, I am a TBV member, very proud of that. And we want to go down and, how do you do that? We just can't afford to lose our jobs. We can't afford, and it's not that there's not many that want to or would, it's by the means. But, you are right. We have those that are fighting. We have those who could care less. And then, and there's mixes in between here and there. And then we have people that, the poor plight of the illegal alien, and we just have to allow all of these people in, and we can't secure the border, and why not open borders, and on and on and on and on and on, and it drives me insane. So to those people I say, to those people like this sister I was talking about this evening earlier in the program, why is it that we have to to address the violence, say in Mexico, Central America, whatever? Why do they all have to come here? Why can't they be helped there?
Why don't they be? And what makes this so bad is the fact that this political structure that we've got in Mexico City and the United States are so kin, they are joined at the hip over money. Mexico had one president. This goes back over 40 years ago, Lopez Mateos. And this because in Mexico you're elected for 6 years. That's it. You never get reelected again. If you're going to do something, you better do it a good job because you won't have a chance to do it again. He was strong. He was a Teddy Roosevelt. He was a George Patton. He was an Eisenhower rolled up into one. And he straightened out Mexico. And he hired people. He set up schools. He equipped hospitals out in the ejidos, out in the monte, out in the brush, to take care of the people so that they would be safe and they could grow and prosper. The next president came in behind him, tore down the schools, destroyed the hospitals, and sold the equipment into Europe. This is what makes it bad. Is they have a bunch of politicians as bad or even worse than what we've got. And the plight of these people, I understand that, but at some point we can't be.
Exactly.
We can't be everybody's stepmother.
Exactly.
And the Washington has decided that we're going to save everybody. We can't, because in the process we are in a leaky boat.
Well, and the ones that they're ignoring are their own citizens. We got people living in
And
crime-ridden, run-down, subsidized housing that get an allowance from the Obama administration, and they just seem to be happy with that. Their kids lay on the ground. One kid was talking about how grew up laying on the floor because of the bullets. Well, hello. We don't target illegal alien gang members in Chicago, but we can go after the Second Amendment law-abiding citizens. I mean, it's all just so
yes,
backwards.
And in the process of, see, one of the things that we could do is we have a lot of trained, tenured, patriotic at their age veterans. And I have talked to a number here in town. They said, give us an opportunity. And if nothing else, we will walk out. We will go out and walk the property so that at least somebody will be seen, and that way the family can sleep at night. There was one, and what makes this bad are the veterans who were taking it in the head because of the administration for any and the Marines. And I don't want to get off on that too far because we get away from the river. But here's the thing. We can take it back and do it well and protect everybody who is worth protecting here in the States and in Mexico if the people will just get off their butts, put down their Facebook, and start to care. Because I'm sorry, ma'am. Go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. It's just, the plight of every country on the planet but our own. I guess I've just gotten so, I've just, been reporting for so long that I am going to put the best interests of my fellow Americans first. Those in Mexico, Central America, and abroad. Grow a spine, pull up your big boy, big girl pants, and get on with it. Quit invading our country. Then you come over here and you make all of your demands upon us, and then you can't figure out why we're upset and angry. Well, get a clue. First of all, what laws do I get to break? I am an American. Hello. I mean, I could just, Rusty, I could go on and on and on and on, but we have, believe it or not, we only have 2 minutes left. That went really fast. Will you be on the program again?
I'll be most happy to, ma'am. And I'll tell you what.
I'll give you the last 2 minutes here.
Input. I get the input from your friends if they want to hear me. Again, that's fine. If they don't, well then we'll play it through and say this has been my chance to rant and try to help.
Rusty, why don't you and I talk? But I have an idea, and it's probably going to get me into a lot of trouble. But, these videos of these incursions, I think it's about time somebody wakes this whole situation up. I'm just thinking on how we can do this. And you and I should talk about that sometime. We'll have to figure this out. But I want you to be safe down there. I'm glad you're on the program, and I'm so informative, and I really honestly thank you. I do worry a little bit about you, though.
Well, it's like this. I'm 68 and bald, old, and what can they do to me that hasn't already been tried more than once?
You're a kick in the pants, sir. I really do thank you very much, Rusty, for being on the program, and I will have you on again.
That'll be fine, ma'am, as you dictate, and I'll just give me parameters next time so I don't run my mouth so much and burn up so much time.
Oh, hell no. I like it. This was perfect. This is the way it's supposed to be. It's not supposed to be laid out and staged. It's supposed to be just whatever you and I are thinking and the fine points, and you did great. Awesome. Fantastic. And I thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. I do appreciate your time.
Be safe.
Be safe as well. God bless. God bless, ma'am.
Thank you very much, folks, for tuning in. We will have Rusty back on the program. I appreciate him being our guest this evening. Be safe. Have a good night.